In part 7, back in Luxor, we explore the Blue Temple of Ramses III, tombs for nobles, and an emotional visit to the tomb of Nefertari.
Hey y'all, we're here at the temple of Amun-Re at Medinet Habu. Yeah, so let's go have a look, y'all.
She's embarrassed because actually she's American. Do an English accent. Do a Kiwi accent.
Now, Sharon, you have to enunciate. You have to enunciate and you're doing.
Here I am doing full enunciation and look at my ears.
After a day off sailing up the Nile, we once again reached Luxor.
On the top also, remember, the holes where we hang the flags of the banners.
On the west bank, this is Medinet Habu, one of Egypt's most colorful temples. Sekhmet guards the entrance.
This temple was created by Ramses III. He's one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs, although not related to Ramses II. However, Ramses III did try to emulate Ramses II by building on such a grand scale and making his name so deep in the walls. And just like Ramses, he surrounded this inner court with statues of himself with his children. Let's go look closer.
It was here that Ramses III was murdered when one of the feuding wives in his harem snuck a snake into his bedroom. However, it took almost 10 days for the venom to kill the king, and this gave him enough time to seek justice.
Here at Medinet Habu in Luxor, we can see these magnificent statues of Ramses III. He was basically slain by his harem, or at least some people in his harem, and these statues will probably be familiar with some of you because they appeared in a James Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me.
The most well-preserved temple colors can be found at Medinet Habu, the blue showing the vast amount of wealth that Ramses III acquired. Again on the ceiling we see Nekbet, showing that this is a pure temple. And on either side of the pylon we see Ramses III giving offerings to the ultimate god, Amun. When looking at the walls of a temple, you must remember that these are not just images of art, but it is a story being told for eternity. The Egyptians believed if you carved your name into stone, it would last for forever. The creator god Amun and his wife Mut are shown repeatedly throughout this temple, with Ramses III giving offerings directly to them, thanking them for a prosperous reign. The ancient Egyptians had a plethora of gods, and each one had a defined role based on the qualities they portrayed.
Muhammad, right there. You don't see that?
Oh, okay. That's so clear.
Why
Why you guys take me to these places? Okay.
In the inner court, we see Ramses III celebrating his jubilee. He's being carried by all of his princes in a royal throne, accompanied by the goddess Ma'at, showing that he has brought balance to Egypt. Truly a marvel of ancient architecture. However, this temple was not entirely built by Ramses III. It was built a lot earlier by Amenhotep III. The back section was what was started by the grandfather of Tutankhamun. In a small shrine is a decapitated statue made out of white alabaster, depicting Amenhotep III as Ptah.
Another chapel for another god, and this god is super important for the Egyptians. This is very much the god of the whole Egyptians, the god of the craftsmanship. From the biggest man in Egypt to the smallest one, the king and the smallest one, they all loved him, they all consider him great. That's a little bit chapel, and it has just a wonderful piece of alabaster, a single piece for god Ptah, one of the most important gods in ancient Egypt.
Below we can still see the name of Amenhotep. this was possibly destroyed by his son Akhenaten.
In ancient Egypt, the Pharaohs were very connected to the god Ra, the god of the sun, and maybe because they wake up early, earlier than any other one, and they do a lot of noise, and they thought that they're greeting the sun. So usually they connect the baboons with the sun.
Baboons were seen as connected to the ibis god Thoth, the god of writing and intelligence, and were used to help spread his wisdom.
You feel that it's not easy, it's too difficult. How you can polish such a stone and make it that perfect? You put your hand on it, and you remember your kitchen.
The Ankh represents eternal life, and Ramses built this temple to ensure he would live for forever. Hidden at the side of the Valley of the Kings is Deir el-Medina, or better known as the Workmen's Village, where the workmen who built the temples and the tombs on the West Bank lived and were buried in the cliffs. A relatively intimate village, each person who worked on the tombs or the temples on the West Bank were given housing. And here we find nobles, craftsmen, scribes and more.
Here we are at the Workmen's Village, Deir el-Medina, where the workmen lived. These are the workmen for the New Kingdom Pharaohs. So all the tombs that you see in the Valley of the Kings have been built by the people who lived here. And their tombs are up there, which are beautifully painted.
Sharon, where are we going?
Into the tomb.
On their days off, the workmen helped each other build these elaborate tombs, not for kings, but for themselves.
Hey Karen,
Yes,
what did you think of the Tomb of the Nobles?
unbelievable.
Gorgeous.
I thought it was a setup.
Looks like yesterday.
Yes.
And now, we go up.
Many tombs were built here, including the tomb of Senefer. This tomb was actually built as a family mausoleum, where each member would be buried upon their departure of this world.
Sharon, this is another tomb for a noble, one of the artists from Deir el-Medina. And isn't it just incredible to look at? I mean, it's very different to a royal tomb, but the art is actually a little bit more refined.
Yes, and as you can see, Curtis, there's a lot of yellow here,
Yes.
which is a very cheerful colour.
But there's blue, which showed this man
Yes.
had money.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can
Very
see him
expensive.
here. He's bowing by the palm with the dates.
That's
and
right,
that's
that's-
so Egyptian.
Yes, and it shows that he will always have water.
Hathor. And Hathor is seen here with her beautiful eye makeup.
Let's go into her burial chamber. It's absolutely amazing. Nefertari, the beauty of the beauties. And here is the great Queen's royal chamber. Karen, it's beautiful, right? Nefertari, the great royal wife of Ramses II. This is my second time inside Nefertari's tomb. Last year, I left a flower here for Nefertari. This year, because I think she's the most beautiful woman, I'm gonna leave her a beautiful peacock feather. So let's give it to Nefertari. She's my favorite, and this tomb, you get to feel a true love story inside here. Her tomb was painted in a fresco style, with wet paint being applied to plaster rather than stone, and displays some of the finest and most beautiful detail of all Egyptian tombs. The care taken shows not only the love that Ramses had for her, but the love that the workmen who built this tomb for Nefertari shared. She was celebrated for not only her beauty, but her intelligence throughout the ancient world.
don't judge me until you come here. You have to experience it for yourself.
Being in here is very overpowering. To think of this extraordinary woman, and that her husband, Ramses II, dedicated these beautiful images to the love of his life, Nefertari, who was taken away from him by the age of 30. Princes were also buried in the Valley of the Queens.
The tomb of Hague, the second son of Ramses III. Ramses III gave all his sons the same names as those accorded to Ramses the Great, or the second. There's no relationship between the kings, but it's interesting how he wanted to follow, that Ramses III wanted to follow the footsteps of the great Ramses. This is exquisite. All these tombs are. Those made for Ramses III's sons have the most beautiful paintings and depictions of the gods and Ramses leading his sons to the gods to ensure the afterlife of his children.
In our 8th and final episode, we explore the thousands of artifacts at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo and see some of the most historic places that Cairo has to offer.